beautiful Time Chroniclers. Welcome back to the podcast with Pigtail, Gurl and Starfire Tour. I'd like to start off by just bringing to your attention our fundraiser, because there really is no other podcast in the world that can actually bring you this unique and amazing information that we do. This is why we produce and co-host this show. It does take a lot of our time, energy, and resources to make the podcast happen. So please donate to our fundraiser so that you can support the continuation of our show. To donate, click on the link in the show's description page below, or click on the donation link embedded in our channel's main cover image. Any amount is welcome, as are anonymous donations. You can go to www.gofundme.com/f/the Time Chronicles podcast. This tough love episode of the Time Chronicles is for the well-intentioned people who genuinely want to use their energy to help save our planet from the darkness in our midst. To be successful, no matter who you are, you must start from a place of realistic knowledge. We intend to give you that realistic knowledge, even though it may upset some of you.
When it comes to certain cutting-edge topics, such as the Matrix, the Schumann Resonance blackout, angels, ETs, Ascension, and others, we have seen a lot of fantasy thinking. When good people put their beliefs into fantasy thinking, their best intentions will fail. Worse yet, their best intentions can actually help the darkness get stronger. Any good that well-intentioned people might have done to help the earth is effectively stopped. So, if you put up the next panel, please. Good, thank you. Pigtail Gurl and I want to give you sort of the basic foundation of what we're really up against on our planet, particularly if you're someone who really wants to be a caretaker for the planet and is very interested in using your personal special gifts to do that, whether they are psychic, spiritual, physical, whatever it is. It's very important that you come from a very solid reality foundation. And we call this podcast Tough Love because we're going to give you some of that when it comes to some of what we call wrong think about what you're really up against, what we're really dealing with. Now, the first thing that you're looking at here is dark matter and the dark matter aberration. Very briefly, our entire universe has something in it called dark matter. Basically, it's the glue that holds everything in the cosmos together. That includes us, planets, solar system, galaxies, coexisting timelines, dimensions, everything. So on the left, you'll see this is my version of what it looks like. Now look on the right. That's called the dark matter aberration. You can see that there are missing parts to it. There are large gaps in the connectivity to this dark matter aberration that I call the DMA. It's like an Alzheimer's patient when the brain just isn't able to remember, function properly. Well, that's what the DMA is. And it moves throughout the universe looking for ways to heal itself. But it can't. It's not possible. And it does so by absorbing the energy from other things, including planets, habitats, and people like humans or off-worlders that we call ETs, even souls, which are made of stardust. Okay? So at some point, thousands of years ago, the DMA infested our planet, the Earth. The DMA is the source of all evil. The source, not just it's evil, it's the source of all evil in the cosmos because of the way it behaves. It doesn't recognize itself as being evil. It's not a sentient being. It's functioning off of something called the cosmic all spark of life. It's just following a protocol. It's a program that's gone awry. Okay. If you could put up the next panel, please. Thank you. Okay. When the dark matter aberration, the DMA, infested our planet thousands of years ago, it did so to feed on our souls, feed on the energy of the planet, whoever and whatever happened to be here. It feeds because our planet at the time was unprotected. So in order to create a planet that was feed worthy, that kept the food supply coming, the DMA created what it calls DMA minions, dark sorcerers. And from the DMA minions and dark sorcerers, you get sub minions and thralls. Basically, a DMA minion is someone, human or off-worlder ET who lives here now, who has had their soul fed upon by the DMA. The soul is gone, and in its place is put DMA programming, which is all about setting up the planet as a feeding station, which means that the planet has to be turned into a place where humans have the worst thoughts and actions. They're creating the energy that comes from their worst thoughts and actions. The DMA does not feed on love or caring or harmony or unity. No, these aren't the energy that the DMA feeds on. So our world was reshaped into behaving in this way because of the DMA minions, and behind them, the DMA sorcerers, the dark sorcerers. And over time, our planet was literally flipped into being what's now I refer to as the proper matrix, where we're supposed to be, into what is the false matrix, opposite world, bizarro world, the world we are in now, the world that everybody knows, the world where nothing is right. This is where the darkness is. And for quite some time now, the core matrix and a lot of people, humans and otherwise, have been working to shatter the false matrix so that we can flip back into the proper matrix. And if you can move on to the next panel, please.
Okay.
Thank you. This is also about the soul and the soul body integration. Just know that the soul is a sentient being. It's made of stardust. It does seek out a body to integrate with, not to possess, but to have a relationship with, because while the body is learning from the soul is learning from the body, because everyone is having both a physical and spiritual relationship at the same time. The soul doesn't fit inside of the body. It expands well beyond that into many dimensions and many coexisting timelines. And the body is very fixed upon its relationship with the core matrix, which the brain of the body is the interface to the core matrix. And what Pigtail Gurl and I would like you to do to have this all make even greater sense, as I say, we have a lot of podcasts that go deeply into these topics, and we highly suggest that you watch them. And there's a reason why we are bringing all of this forward. Right now, this happens to be October the 3rd, 2022. And as the false matrix is shattering, as the core matrix and many of us, many people are using their energies to help the core matrix along, to take us from the false matrix into the proper matrix. It's a long process that's been thousands of years in the making. Pigtail Gurl and I, as I've said, we've noticed that thousands, perhaps millions of people are putting their energy into things that simply are fantasy. Even their best of intentions, they know they want to get out of the dark place. And we're telling you, the 11th month, something is happening very early on. And that's going to decide whether we get to actually flip into into the proper matrix, that we actually get over the hump, like a Wednesday work hump.
The good place.
Right. Or, we're in deeper trouble than anyone's even realized. So we want to take you through some of the problems that we have observed. And we're going to ask you, some of you may have a knee-jerk reaction to some of this. We're asking you, okay, but allow it to last only a few seconds. And then pay attention. We're doing this because time is of the essence. And we're using real world examples to show you. Let's talk about the matrix for just a moment. This is probably the greatest problem that I personally, that I see. I discuss it with Pigtail Gurl all the time. Okay, listen closely to this. A lot of people, really good people, seem to think that we have to get out of the matrix.
Yeah.
No, right. No, you don't. The Matrix is a movie. It's a movie I happen to like, but it's science fiction. It's based on certain truths, a seed of truth. But the movie plotline itself is not the way things really work. The Matrix is a construct of the movie. Before the movie even started, I had discovered the real Matrix. And I was writing about it and lecturing about it for years before the movie came out. When the movie came out, people who had followed my work were very confused. They couldn't understand why the actual science that I was using of the Matrix didn't match up with the movie. And people were trying to debate me, a movie versus reality. So I changed the name to the Core Matrix, and it's been that way for decades.
Well, with humans, I think one of the things I know about humans is seeing is believing. So we have this mechanism in our brain that when we see things, even if it's a movie, we can start to believe it.
Right. Well, like I said, I really liked the movie.
Yeah.
Okay. and the movie did touch a part of a human knowing that there's something more going on here.
Yes.
That the world isn't what it seems to be. But now the problem becomes where they're being led, not from the movie's great, but where they're being led in real life is there's a certain person that started something where he wrote books, he went lecturing, made podcasts all about the Matrix. He got very inspired by the movie, also inspired because I met him before the movie. And I told him about my discoveries. I told him about what I learned about the Matrix. Fortunately, I took that meeting with my friend Brandon Scott. And, he's a very smart man, a really good communicator. But I'm sorry, but folks, when you believe you have to get out of the Matrix, what you're really doing is you're helping to keep us into the false matrix. You don't want to get out of the matrix. You want to get to the proper matrix. You want to get out of the false matrix. So please change your language, change your thinking. You want to get out of the false matrix, not the matrix. Because when you say you want to get out of the matrix, that means you want to stay out of the proper matrix. You're actually feeding the DMA. You're feeding the DMA minions. You're feeding the wrong thing. So what you think you're doing that's positive is actually you're doing negative. You're supporting the wrong thing. So please change your language and change your thinking. This is not the movie, The Matrix. We are not in a hologram. This is real. Even though we are in multiple coexisting timelines at the same time, we are real in every single one of them. I know this is a different concept than that's in that movie, but you must not believe that. it is false.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah, and when you believe in false ideas as well, it's like kind of ignorance. We actually associate it with being in the dark, don't we? It's funny
Yes.
how like you're feeding into the dark, and it's easier to be deceived and feed into the darkness when you are ignorant of the truth.
Right. Especially, you know, scams.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a scam is when someone is intentionally knows what's real
Mm-hmm.
and chooses to do something that's dishonest because that's how they're going to either get famous, make money, whatever drives them.
And some of those people are mentally ill as well.
Yes.
that do that. They're not only brilliant or genius people. Some of these people that we see out there peddling
falsehoods,
the wrong thing.
Right.
they actually you'd find out later they were mentally ill and quite delusional.
Right. But there are some people who are just scoundrels.
Just scamming.
They're just scamming.
Yeah.
And then there are people that are perfectly fine. They're perfectly sane. They're great in every way, but they've been led astray.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's not their fault. And if you're one of them, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
We just want you to know that, but that's not an excuse because we're telling you. And we want you to share this information. We want you to share this podcast. We want you to share this information because we have a very short window in which we want your intent, your energy to get where it needs to go. If you want to fill up this planet with the type of energy that can block the dark matter aberration, that can block the DMA minions and what they do, you have to have your foundation information correct.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're giving you. Now, a lot of this...
sorry, I just want to add there,
yeah,
and as well,
sure.
You'll know that this information is correct because when it's applied, you'll see results. If we had the answer to dealing with this evil and we just had the answer, we would have already dealt with it. So it just shows that even for thousands of years, people have been given tools or ideas that they should work with for their salvation or for their saving of self, but it hasn't really bared many fruits yet. So
right.
You will know if some information is genuine because it will bear fruits like we do in our missions. We've bared many fruits in our missions that we've already concluded. So
we have proven that our knowledge is right on.
It's applicable. You can apply it in reality.
Right. So
get results.
Exactly. So we just want you to know that we want you to be proactive in the very thing that you want to do, that you believe that you're doing. We just want to make sure that you're not falling for some of the wrong think.
Mm-hmm. And it's easy to be led astray. I've had to remove wrong think from my brain.
Oh, sure.
I've had to go through many a wrong think.
Well, in my earlier years, so did I. Oh. I mean, we're all searching, but, once I discovered the Core Matrix, everything else about who we are, where we come from, how everything works became very obvious to me. And I was able to physically prove it. So one of the things that we see happening all the time is there are humans. I use the word humans because there are also ETs here who live on the planet and who were born off world. And I want to make sure that I'm acknowledging that. So I saw recently, for example, someone claiming to be an ascended master. And then he wrote this whole very serious thing about how people are in 3Ds and 4Ds and 5Ds and 6Ds and 7Ds, and that everyone's working on their own thing, and that, this group of people is going to go over here, and this group of people is going to go over there, and this D and that D, and these people are going to go underground, and these people in spaceships. None of that is true. Mm-mm. None of that. Not at all. So if you could move on to the next panel, please.
Yeah, and again, it's giving people bits of information that you can't really apply, and it's not even very useful for your life, is it? To think, oh, in the future, what, I'm in some dimension doing stuff, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm going to go over there. It's all of this just dangling a carrot to something maybe in the future, and that's what illusions like to do. Delusional thoughts and illusions are all about keeping you distracted. Like is it the Seven of Cups in the tarot? You know, the looking at all the falsehoods because it distracts you and keeps you from being present in the moment.
Right. Well, in order to help people not fall into that problem, here is the foundation information. We are on planet Earth. It consists of multiple coexisting timelines and many dimensions. We are all in it together. It doesn't matter what we look like, what we think, what our age is. It doesn't matter. We are all here on the same journey, cosmically speaking. There is no person and no group of people who is ascending anywhere. We are here to have a very physical experience, which is integrated with the soul to help get this planet out of the false matrix. Together. We do it together or nobody gets it done.
Right.
Nobody gets to go on their own journey. No, ascension is a word that humans should strike from their consciousness. What humans really want to aspire to is enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
Enlightenment that helps them to be the best caretakers of the planet and to help flip us into the proper matrix. You cannot, what?
Sorry, I was just going to say that I feel a lot of this is down to escapism, a need to escape. So we feel unhappy. We're aware that there's something going on around us that's not right. So we jump on something as an escape route. Oh, I have to escape, go somewhere else.
That's right. Ascension is the need to flee.
Yeah.
It's understandable.
Fight or flight.
Yeah, fight or flight, right. But that's not real. That's not what's going on at all. And when you think it is, and you've talked yourself into that this is the way it is, you are ascending away from your job. You're ascending away from where you're needed. I don't care how intelligent you think you are, how enlightened you think you are, how ascended you believe you are. You're not. If you don't know this basic information that I'm saying and that we're both saying right now, you don't get it. And we need you to get it now. Okay. Now, looking at our next, this is one of my pet peeves. And I know you've talked about it too, and you've written about it. It's about something called channeling. Angels and extraterrestrials do not channel. They do not communicate channeling with humans. That's a type of possession. That's a human giving over their body to another entity and allowing that entity to use their body to communicate. Neither angels nor extraterrestrials do that. But demons, demonics, and posers do. Posers being lower astral entities. Lower astral entities and demonics are scammers. They're pretending. They fool humans into thinking that they're talking with a relative, an angel, an ET, an ascended master.
An ascended master. Let's not forget those.
Let's not forget those. Okay.
Saint Germain.
Right. But yes. But these are posers. They're not really who they claim to be.
And they can make you feel feelings of love and connection. Like entities are very good at sending fake signals to make you feel like you're in the presence of something loving.
That's right. And while they're doing this, they are taking they're feeding on you. they're feeding on you. And eventually they will feed so much upon you that you will alter, you will change, and your body will be no more. They will have sucked you dry like a prune. So, but you're right. These demonics and these lower astral entity posers, they understand humans. They know how to adjust themselves to appeal to whatever gets that human to trusting them. It's a bad thing. So here's another pet peeve, people who say that they channel the angels and the ETs and they have all these great messages from the ascended masters. These aren't messages from ascended masters.
From the Pleiadians as well. That's another one.
Just no. The answer is no. No extraterrestrial is channeling through a human. They don't. Some ETs are very telepathic, but that's different.
That's different because that's how I communicate with things that I can't see, shall I say. It's always telepathy and feelings, like I just know what they're telling me.
Right, but you didn't channel. You didn't give your body over to another entity. No, that's wrong. Humans do not do that. Please don't do that. Please understand that if you are somebody who believes that you are talking to extraterrestrials, channeling, not talking, because remember, they can be telepathic or they can do it straightway, or they can do it through some of their telepathy can be straight words in the language that you understand. Some of it can be telepathic images, like a movie or a flash. Those are real. But the channeling stuff, no, not happening. So if you are someone who thinks that they are channeling an angel, master, this or that, ET, stop. That's not what's going on. If you know someone who is and you follow them and you believe them, stop. You're not, it's not really happening. It doesn't necessarily mean that that person is scamming you. Scamming means they really know that they're doing it. Some of them are scammers, serious scammers. They know that they're just making it up as they go. They're very clever. They usually look at what's going on in today's world. They see what's trending. They know what, turns you on spiritually, and they go for it.
That's it. They want to do their weekly energy update to get the people clicking on their story.
Right. And then some people really, really, really do believe that they're experiencing this and they're just sharing with you what it is they're getting. But believe me, they're not getting this from whoever they say they're getting this from. That does not exist. What's really interesting is that humans really have an ability to get this information straight from the source themselves. They don't need to have a go-between. But a lot of people feel that this is how they can get attention to what they're really picking up out of the ethers, or from their interface with the core matrix, or from their own telepathic abilities. Most of the time, though, the information that they come up with is quite wrong.
Yeah, a lot of the time.
Most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time.
At least the ones that have gone out of their way to make themselves a big deal, or who want to be a big deal. But I am going to say that most of the people who you don't even know who they are, the millions of people in the world, they're plugged in. They do pick up real information. And many times the people around them either don't believe them. Like, you can have a dream and you can see a precognition of the future, the past or the present. You can be absolutely 100% true. When you try to tell it to someone around you, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to believe it. And you give up. So millions of people really are picking up real information. It's just that you don't know about it. There's no central location for real people with real experiences and real information to plug in all together
Yeah.
I'd love to change that someday,
And
but right
those
now,
people will seem less interesting than a big showman saying he's channeling some alien, giving you like a great show on stage. That's going to catch people who don't know's eye far more than just a little, maybe old lady on YouTube saying they'd had this weird dream the other day, or like a little message, right? It's not so
right,
much of a big spectacle.
right. Now, if you could go to the next panel, please, about the matrices.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Okay, so now we're getting back to the matrix because this really is the crux of the whole thing. The proper matrix and the false matrix are not the same worlds or timelines, just as we discussed. If you look at what I created on the left, that's the false matrix, which is also called the wrong dominant coexisting timeline. And look on the right, that's where we belong. That's the proper matrix. That's the proper dominant coexisting timeline. These two different timelines are connected. And as you can see, all that black webbing that's in the false matrix, that's the work of the DMA. If you look at the one on the right, you see this sort of rainbow circle around it. That's the protective force field that used to be up thousands of years ago on the Earth. It was lost. It went down. Something happened. And it went down. And this is how the DMA was able to infest the planet. Good news, folks. This protective force field is back up and has been back up for almost a year, very nearly a year. And this is when the real shattering of the false matrix began. It is this shield which is so important, and we are connected to it. All of us are. And this is what you need to be concentrating on as part of shattering the false matrix. So we now want to move on. If you go to the next one, please, next panel.
Okay.
Thanks. Very, very recently, starting in early September, a very interesting thing happened. There was an historic 10-day Core Matrix Prime Directive timeline reboot. That reboot was seen by many reflected in the Schumann Resonance, the Earth's Schumann Resonance, which reflects a lot of energy going on. And we're bringing this up for a reason, because we know what's really almost 100% impacting what you see on the Schumann Resonance. I've been teaching it for years. It's what the Core Matrix is doing with the timeline edits, shattering the false matrix. Everything that the Core Matrix does involves energy and changes the frequency of the planet. Every coexisting timeline is existing in the same space, but is separated by frequencies. So, Pigtail Gurl, why don't we go over what happened in these 10 days in September that were so important to the planet, and then what we saw certain people doing and putting out there that was absolute wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you take it from the top there?
Yes, Starfire. So what was the historic 10-day Core Matrix Prime Directive reboot focused on? Well, number one, it focused on resurrecting the Earth following a triggered time-looping planet-ending nuke catastrophe. Number two, to further the building of the rainbow frequency bridge that connects the false matrix with the proper matrix. Very important. Number three, the onset of timeline edits into both the wrong dominant coexisting timeline, aka the false matrix, and at the same time into the proper dominant coexisting timeline, aka the proper matrix.
Right. Now, I talk about the importance of the 11th month, that there's a very short timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why this historic 10-day reboot of our planet happened is because, and this has happened before, and this goes back to how the original Earth protective force field was destroyed. The Earth was what I call smithereened, was destroyed currently. That happened back in what we're going to call September 2022. And the prime directive of the Core Matrix is to make sure that the Earth stays intact. and all life upon it stays intact. It's very hard to do in the false matrix because the false matrix is built on the very worst thoughts and actions of humans. And we are currently in a time when a lot of people with a lot of power are threatening the whole planet with their nukes. And in this previous to the reboot timeline, it happened. The nukes went off, the planet was smithereened, and the core matrix resurrects us. We see it as a 10-day reboot, just like you would have to reboot your computer. That's what a timeline reboot is. But for all we know, it took thousands of years to do. The time with the core matrix is not relative to the way that we perceive time. But the reason that we're able to even know that this reboot has happened is because it's very important, and the core matrix understands this, that we remember the false matrix. We have to remember this bizarro world we've been forced to live in for thousands of years and how it has come to this. Very recently, and I put this in one of my core matrix reports on September the 2nd of 2022, the core matrix had gone so far along in shattering the false matrix that it began to build what I call a rainbow frequency bridge between the false matrix and the proper matrix. This is what's going to allow us to flip. You have to have a conduit, a pathway between the two matrices, the proper one and the false one. And the core matrix has been building this for us, and it's fantastic because that's so encouraging. Also, the core matrix has been doing the timeline editing, not just in the false matrix, which it's been forced to do, but both the proper and the false matrix, meaning that it's building up, it's regenerating the proper matrix so that when we flip there, we belong there. Okay. So we want people to, this is our tough love. We want people to, get with the reality, get with the foundation of what we're really dealing with, which is the DMA, the source of all evil, DMA minions. This is where the darkness comes from. And you don't get out of it by ascending, by leaving others behind. That's not what humans were created to do. Okay. If we could move on to the next panel, which is the Schumann Resonance chart, one of them, the one that I use a lot, from something that happened on September the 5th. Thank you. Okay, great. So here you see the Schumann Resonance chart. Now, what everyday people who love this chart think that aren't into anything beyond, the norm, believe that the Schumann Resonance chart just basically shows lightning and electrical background noise on planet Earth. End of story. Sorry. No, that's not it at all. What the Schumann Resonance is actually picking up, besides, a little bit of lightning here and there, a little bit of background electrical noise, it's actually showing what the core matrix is doing with the Earth frequency. Every time it does a timeline edit or a reboot or a timeline payload edit, you can see it because it alters the frequency of the planet. That's what you're seeing is the core matrix in action. That's it. The core matrix in action. Now, if you look at this particular Schumann Resonance chart from September 4th, September 5th, September 6th, you'll see that between the 5th and the 6th, something very strange looking is there. And that strange looking thing, I've never seen it before. It's missing the deep blue background. It's missing the green. It's missing a lot of itself. And they're just these straight as an arrow blue lines, which are core matrix timeline edits, but they're not normal. And then when it comes out of it on the 6th of September, you've got these big white zones, which tell you that the core matrix is putting in timeline edit payloads. And then after that begins the historic 10-day reboot. And we see this as data being blacked out on not only this chart, but other charts as well. And this is really the time of the timeline reboot. Like I said, it lasted into the 10th day. So there is a real data blackout. Now, for those of you who are sticklers, yes, sometimes a blackout can be just a technical data issue. And it has nothing to do with the core matrix. But in this case, this was a data issue. If you could show the next panel, please. Thank you. This is one of my faves. This is what I was telling you that I found out about. And on September the 2nd, this is my artistic rendition of what it looks like with the core matrix building that rainbow frequency pathway from, this is what the proper matrix is with the protective force field in place. This is the proper matrix that we belong in. And this was just good news that I wanted to, share. And obviously, this was just a few days before the onset of that weird pre-reboot period that you can see in the Schumann Resonance chart. And I have a habit of that happening where I precog things. If you could go to the next panel, please. Thank you. This is great. Okay. At the same time that weirdness on September the 5th that we see in the Schumann Resonance chart, there's also an X flare was unleashed. It was on the far side of the sun, it was not Earth facing or Earth directed, but this happened. And it's very important that you understand that major flares that happen on the sun do not impact the Earth's Schumann resonance. They do not. And I'm going to show you in a panel in just a moment why I know this to be so. I'm going to show you physical evidence of why this is not so. So here we have this incredible X flare, but the X flare is actually creating time shifts. A time shift is very much created by these flares, and it warps the space-time continuum around Earth. Einstein actually was the first to propose this in a theory. It's called frame dragging, and it actually was documented by NASA a number of years ago. After I sort of talked a lot about it, I saw what Einstein had theorized, and it fit in beautifully with what I discovered about the core matrix. So I did not discover frame dragging. I simply was able to prove frame dragging. And then NASA proved frame dragging. And so we all now know that the Earth is subject to a warping in the space-time continuum. And that's what I call a time shift. And when there's a time shift, the core matrix can actually access it and sort of upgrade its timeline edits, reboots, payloads, all of that. It's fantastic. So if you could please put on the next panel. Great, thank you. Okay, now during this 10-day time, this reboot, it ended on September the 15th, 2022. And an interesting thing about this reboot, as I told you, and as Pigtail Gurl told you, this involves a time looping planet ending nuke problem. Now, when there's a reboot, when our planet has been smithereened, as happened recently, because of this false matrix and what this evil is doing in our world, when the core matrix resurrects us, it has to use all of the energy that exists for our planet. That means the same energy that smithereened us, that destroyed us. How does the core matrix do this? Put us back together like a puzzle piece. Use the same energy and we don't get smithereened all over again right away. Here's how it happens. The core matrix has a way of splitting up the force of the energy into smaller chunks that are part of nature. For example, earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, landslides, tsunamis, ultimate weather, things of that nature. So these are all related to nuke energy. Hurricanes are actually looked at as what is it in terms of the power of a nuclear explosion. So when you see how the core matrix disperses this energy, for example, right after this 10-day reboot ended, you see an X flare and M flares. That's September the 16th. On September the 17th, you see another X flare, M flares. On September the 18th, you see all three of these main Earth-facing sunspots. All of them are firing off. Okay? This is all energy, which the core matrix is putting the destructive nuclear, the energy is going into this. If you can move to the next panel, please. While that is happening, you have the floods in Alaska, energy being dispersed. Hurricane Fiona, energy being dispersed. In Japan, Typhoon Namdal hit there at the same time an earthquake did, energy being dispersed. Tropical Storm Madeline in Mexico, September the 19th, the energy being dispersed. This is how the core matrix is doing it. Could you please go on to the next panel?
This is a pattern that repeats, isn't it? Around
Yes.
the reboots that are linked to the nuke.
Right. That's what makes
disaster.
Science, when you can repeat the patterns.
Yeah.
Well, for decades since I discovered the core matrix, this is how I know what I know, because these are repeat patterns. I study it. I'm the only one in the world who does, obviously. So here we have September 17th, Taiwan, 6.5 earthquake. Then we have on September the 18th, Taiwan, 6.9 earthquake. Mexico, 7.6 earthquake. These are all the same places being hit with earthquakes, typhoons, hurricanes. It's the dispersal of the energy, the nuke energy that smithereened our planet is being dispersed post-reboot. And I'm just showing you a fraction of what's going on. Okay? Now, if you go on to the next panel, please. Now we're going to take you up to right now. I told you that we're recording this on October the 3rd, 2022. Yesterday, October the 2nd, 2022, Sunspot 3110, which originally is called Sunspot 2975. It's very old Sunspot and it's very historic. It's Earth-facing right now, and it unleashed an X flare. The day before, on October the 1st, 2022, it unleashed a couple of really high M flares, near X flares. And when I wrote my core matrix report, I sort of pondered, I wonder if we're going to have an X flare from this. Seemed obvious to me. And voila, it did. And so on the right, you can see there is that X flare. Now, this is really important because this is the core matrix continuing its personal fight to keep us free of that repositioning of that time looping, planet ending nuke problem, which is still in our face. You should all be paying attention to what's going on in the world. And you know the threats that we are getting from various, countries. And this is our problem.
Well, you were saying about the wrong thing. And I've noticed that a lot of people seem to have this erroneous idea that certain things don't exist or can never happen, as an example. Like some people keep telling me that nukes are not a thing. They're made up. They're not real. Wrong thing like this. Or I've heard people say that the planet will always be okay. It can't be destroyed. Some people just believe that nothing bad can ever happen to the planet. So therefore they don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, it's totally untrue. In fact, the very reason why thousands of years ago, the Earth lost its protective force field is because of the Earth was destroyed. So, and the Core Matrix resurrected us, and this is what started this particular time loop. This is the beginning of the very time loop. If you would go on to the next panel, please.
Maybe that's why we have such an interest in resurrection on this planet.
It's good thought. Good thought.
It's in the psyche.
You know, it's actually a very good thought. This is going to bring us full circle. This is the current, at the moment of this recording, Schumann Resonance chart from October the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of 2022. And if you know anything about the Schumann Resonance chart, or you followed my work, you'll know that this is a very calm, not much of anything happening chart. That's what I call the meh Schumann Resonance chart. And all of this is happening at the time when we have an X flare and multiple high M flares flanking this X flare on October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. And this is what I'm telling you. These huge solar flares, things that are happening on the sun, they are not impacting what's going on the Earth as far as we can see. But wait a minute. Wait just a minute. You see, all through this time, we've been having time shifts. Lots of them. Time literally shifts and timeline edits. So powerful. This is to shatter the false matrix. So powerful that what you're seeing in this Schumann resonance chart is not what happened. It's not what happened. It's what we are seeing after we've had these time shifts. There was a whole bunch of stuff going on in this chart. There would be huge white zones with payloads and timeline edits and so much going on. But this is the calm that we see now. What this means is that the core matrix really did something fantastically wonderful. This is one more step into the shattering of the false matrix and flipping us into the proper matrix. Now that you've seen this, Pigtail Gurl and I want to tell you what we've seen about so many people who absolutely make things up about what they see in this very Schumann resonance chart and going back throughout the lifetime of this chart. They think that the chart and the earth energies that they're seeing in the chart, just in the chart, are angels, ETs, ascended masters. They think that this energy changes that they see in the chart are coming from those entities. They are not.
Or they think it's ascension codes.
Right. Thank you. They think it's ascension codes. It's not. What you are seeing is always the core matrix at work. Every time it does a timeline edit or a reboot or a payload, it alters momentarily the frequency of the planet to get the job done. Because every time it does this, we go into a new dominant coexisting timeline. These are frequency moves. This is what it does.
Yeah.
And that's right. And that's what you're seeing. Please understand this. This is more tough love coming from us. We love you guys. We know how special you are. We know you care. We want your energy to mean something. We don't want it to be dropped down a rabbit hole or thrown off of a cliff.
Yeah, because people sometimes get stuck down that rabbit hole, and the rabbit hole takes them into a cesspit.
Right. Now, we think it's fantastic that you recognize that something important is happening.
Yeah.
You know, this is great. And it is. We just want you to understand what it is so that you can place your energy properly, so that you can disperse and connect your energy properly. It's not angels talking. It's not ascended masters. It's not some group of humans doing something.
It's not us going into 5D.
No, or 7D or whatever you think
or
it is.
8D.
Right, whatever. it's the D's keep going up as the years go forward. No, none of that is happening. We want you to pay attention to what we're telling you. We want you to go back and watch our other podcasts. And of course, please read my Core Matrix reports. And that's about it. Pigtail Gurl, you have any other ideas?
Well, no, not really. I was just going to say it's about time. That's a bit like our catchphrase. It's about time, like the Schumann Resonance chart. It's about time.
It is. It is about time.
Yeah.
So please take everything that we've shared with you, even if you have a knee-jerk reaction to it. It's the truth. If you're one of those people who believe some of the things that we've told you, please don't believe it. Please think very deeply about what we're saying. The reason why you believe it is because a little grain of it is true. And that's how scammers work. They take a little bit of truth and they build a whole lot of false stuff all around it. They build a fantasy world through it. And so you initially are drawn to it because, wow, a piece of that sparks your brain, your soul, your person. But then they weave in all of this fantasy stuff, and you begin to believe the fantasy stuff because it's tied into a little grain of truth. It doesn't matter what the scammer is, whether they're scamming you on a financial scheme or something in the spirit community, or whether it's about ETs or UFOs. No, that's a whole other show we're going to do. So please believe us. We're doing this out of deep love and concern, which is why we call the show Tough Love. And thank you for watching the show.
Okay, so I hope we've given you something to think about, something to chew over there. And I hope we haven't rattled any cages too loudly, because we do love you guys out there. We just want to arm you with the best tools we can so we can get through this together, right? Being proactive together, my darlings. So thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you on the next wonderful episode of the Time Chronicles.